Hello and welcome to our webinar on Power Platform Governance with Runpipe. Runpipe is a software which helps you gaining control about low-code activities happening in your tenant, as well as enabling your citizen developers building performant apps and flows while keeping them secure and within your company's compliance. This session will give you information about how you can start today securing your tenant with onboard capabilities of Microsoft. In addition, I'm going to show you how Runpipe can help you staying in the driver's seat of your company's digital initiatives. A couple of words about myself. My name is Konstantin. I worked as a developer and trainer for the citizen developers, as well as a consultant for Power Platform and low-code administrators. In year 2021, we started building our own governance solution called Runpipe, which helps us, our company customers, staying in control of different low-code application platforms. So those are the topics that we're going to cover today. The first thing are the Power Platform governance challenges that we gathered in cooperation with other companies. The second topic is how you can secure your Power Platform tenant. When we talk about this, we're going to talk about the environment strategies, the security roles, as well as the data loss prevention policies that need to be configured. The third topic is about the tenant monitoring. So we take a look on which capabilities does Microsoft has to monitor your tenant activities, as well as what can Runpipe offer you in addition to that. The fourth part would be about how you can set up alerts and actions based on the information that you get from Microsoft, and how we can implement this, or you can implement this with Runpipe. The last step is about educating your citizen developers. So when you have defined all the guardrails and structures and set up the whole governance, then it's time to enable your citizen developers to build better applications. And this is what the last topic of our webinar would be about. So before we start, we're going to take a look at the components of the Power Platform. So as you might know, the Power Platform consists of four different components. First one is Power Apps, with which you can build beautiful applications for mobile and for your desktop or for browser. Then we have Power Automate, which helps you to automate different processes. Power BI is about building dashboards and to help you make decisions faster with real-time information. And the last product is Power Virtual Agents, in which you can build chatbots within the Power Platform. All of those tools, they don't live by themselves. They need data to work with. And therefore, we have tons of different connectors, such as connectors from Microsoft, but as well third-party connectors. By the way, there are, in the meantime, more than 600 connectors, which can be used so far. So let's go to the first topic, which is about the challenges of the Power Platform. And those are the challenges that we have discussed with our customers. For example, one challenge is the privacy and GDPR. What people oftentimes don't know is that they are in charge, or the app makers are in charge of building their applications in a way that meets several different regulations, such as GDPR in Europe, for example. But there are other regulations based on the the sector you're working in. For example, in pharma companies, you need to cope with 𝗔𝗯ance, for example. The banking industry has different regulations themselves as well, and this needs to be taken into consideration when talking about the governance, which also reflect, of course, the compliance in which your company is located. Another challenge would be, of course, data loss. So you don't want users to use components or connectors which can talk to the outside of your organization, or maybe you want to let people do this, but you want to stay still in control on which data go out and if this is like a regulated use case. Then we talked with our customers about the like business continuity. For example, you want to always have an owner of your apps and flows because you don't want them to just stop working once your app or flow gets orphaned. And we're talking about shadow IT. So you want that you have an overview of all the applications and flows and Power BI dashboards that are in your company, and you want them to be documented. So the second topic about securing your Power Platform tenant, we're going to talk about mainly two things. The first thing are environments. The second thing are data loss prevention policies. When we are talking about environments, you can imagine them as containers for apps, flows, and the data that you have inside of the Dataverse. You have one default environment, and you can create several non-default environments. And then there's another category, which is called Dataverse for Teams. So every time an application with the Dataverse gets built inside of Microsoft Teams, then we are having other, then they're creating another environment, which can be created by the users themselves. The default environment can be accessed by everyone inside of your tenant, so by every licensed user, so everyone who has access to Power Apps, Power Automate, they are able to use the default environment. And then there are other environments as well, which you can build or which you can create. And we need to bring a little bit of structure in this. So in which scenario should you create an environment, in which not? So those data connectors that are going to be used inside of those environments, you need to configure inside of the DLP policies that we're going to talk later on about. There you need to configure like which connectors should be used together in a specific environment, which environments should be more restrictive and which ones don't. So there's a little bit of configuration to do. As said, the default environment can be accessed by any licensed app maker in your tenant. Then the non-default environments can be created by your administrators, and they can be created for various purposes. And I'm going to talk about those purposes in the next slide. The new environments can be provisioned without a Dataverse or with a Dataverse. Just keep in mind that every time you want to create a new environment, it consumes up to 1 gigabyte of storage. So you should be having an overview on how many or how much data storage you have at the moment, and where you can look up how much storage you still have. We're going to do this in a bit. So for the environment strategy, again, the default environment is the environment that is there by default. That's why it has this name. We recommend, and Microsoft themselves recommend, to rename the default environment to its primary use, which is personal productivity. So it should be the most restrictive one. And in our scenario, when we are talking about the DLP policies, we only allow to make use of the Office 365 connectors and not of the third-party connectors, for example. Then we need to make some adjustments inside of the Power Platform Administrator Center, where we should restrict the environment creation just to administrators. Then when we talk about the environment strategy, we need to set up environments for the audience, and for each audience we should create environments for the staging. So the audience in a global company could be North America, EMEA, etc. Or if you have a smaller company, it could be based on the department. So you have one environment for controlling, one for sales, and so on. Then we should add some staging to this. So this means you don't have one just one production environment for each region or for each department, but you should have at least a development environment for each region, and one production environment for each region or each audience, let's say. In the end, we need to implement a process. So the citizen developer needs to be aware of the process, that if they want to build an application, they should not like build a productive application inside of the personal productivity or the default environment, but there should be like some guidelines in place on where to go when there's like a real application that needs to be set up. So here's the example of how you can imagine those environments. You have your Azure AD tenant in here, and inside of your subscription or inside of your tenant, you have different environments. And in this case, we have one for EMEA, APAC, North America. Those locations should be like, or the audience that are using applications should be connected to those environments. This means only EMEA people should work with EMEA applications. Of course, there might be the case that you have applications that are in global use, so that's fine as well. But to have a little bit of structure in there, it makes sense to make this separation by location, let's say. And then for each area or for each audience, we should create one environment per stage. So this means one development and one production environment. We recommend test environments as well, at least if you have like highly complex applications. There you should have a proper staging in there, but at least even with smaller applications, there should be a development and a production environment, because you don't want the users to work on applications that are already in production, and maybe they make a mistake, and then this leads to processes that might not work for a couple of days. All right, before talking about the data loss prevention, let me take you to my screen, and I'm going to show you how this can be done inside of the Power Platform Admin Center. Now we are in the Power Platform Admin Center. There are a couple of ways to get there, either by going to admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com, or you just go to make.powerapps.com, and then you can just click here to go to the admin center. Okay, now we want to create a new environment, but before we are doing this, let's take a look at what we can see inside of the admin center. So as you can see, we have you can see all the environments. We have some analytics regarding the Dataverse, Power Apps, Power Automate. We have resources where we can check like how much capacity do we have. Do we have enough capacity to create all of the environments that we want to create? And a couple of more, for example, the data loss, the data policies or DLP policies that we're going to take a look on later in this session. So the first thing that we should do when we are new to this Power Platform Administration Center is to take a look at the general, like overall settings. Let's click on this settings icon on the top right and click on Power Platform Settings. As you can see right now, everyone inside of my company can create new production or sandbox environments. This is something I definitely don't want to do. Always, if you don't know what this is exactly means, you can hover over this information icon, which gives you more information about this. Same accounts for me for the trial environments and the allocation of add-on capacity, for example, for the AI builder. You can decide as well if this should be done by any environment admin or by only specific admins. This really depends on how your structure in your company looks like. For example, if everything is IT managed, if only the IT manages all the environments, you can leave it as is. But if you're going to give the departments their own environments, then it might make sense to give the possibility to allocate the capacity just to specific administrators. All right, let's leave it like this for now, and let's close it. Okay, now on this screen, you can see the environments. As you can see, I have one sandbox environment, one production environment, and one default environment. For now, like the default environment, I have renamed it already to personal productivity. This one is an environment that does not give you a lot of like customization. You cannot do backups of it, or you cannot copy this environment. So this should really be for non-business critical applications and flows. Then we have non-default environments. For example, this production environment I created here and the sandbox environment that I have created here. And as you can see, when I click on it, you can see that I have lots more different settings that I can do in here, or possibilities like copy, reset, delete the environment, or viewing the history. Those are things that you can't do with the default environment. The sandbox environment gives some features on top to the production environment, which makes it more attractive for development and testing. When you are done with the development and testing, then you should move the applications and flows as a solution into a new production environment. Let's go inside of my default environment. For your environments that you can see how to how to change the name in here, you need to be inside of the environment, and then you need to click on edit. Once you're here, you can see the name and you can just rename it to whatever you want. As I said, Microsoft recommends to rename it to personal productivity, because this means this is not for like business critical applications, but just for minor applications that are just for yourself or for a very small team. Okay, so how can you create a new environment? When we want to create a new environment, please keep in mind that you need to have at least 1 GB of free storage inside of your Dataverse. And to check the capacity of your Dataverse, you can go to, on the left-hand side, to resources and then click on capacity. As you can see in here, right now I have 3 GB used out of 11.25 GB, so I can create a new environment. So let's go back to environments. Let's click on new and let's give it a name. For example, EMEA Dev. So it's always good to have like a clear naming convention so that it's easy to read which environment has which purpose. Then you can select the region. So this means where are the data of your Dataverse, for example, going to be stored. This means, for example, if I'm located in Germany and I leave it in Germany as default, that I have just quicker access to my data. And of course, for some companies, it's very important that the data are lying there where they're going to be used. Since it's a development environment, I'm going to make it a sandbox environment. I can type in the purpose, but I don't have to, and I need to think about if I need a database for this environment or not. In this case, I want to have a Dataverse database inside of this environment, and I can click on next. So the next questions are like, what is the language? English is fine, and currency should be in euro. Then are those questions like, should sample data already be in here or not? You can leave it like it is. I sometimes use it just for training purposes. And then we have security groups. like who should be able to access this environment. If you leave it like this, everyone inside of your company is going to be able to access this environment. They won't have any security group for the beginning, but they are able to be invited to this environment. If you select a security group, then you then just the people that are inside of this Azure security group, they are going to have access to this environment. Okay, I will leave it as is for the moment. Click on Save. And then it should be here. All right. What else is interesting for us? For example, when you go to analytics, you can see what applications you have at the moment inside of your tenant or inside of your environments. The same is for Power Automate. Since I don't really have applications inside of the EMEA dev at the moment because I just created it, I don't have any report in here. But if I click on this filter, I can click to any environment I want, click on Apply. Since this is a demo tenant, might be that there are no data available at the moment. But as you can see right now, I can't see like a tenant analytics of my tenant, but just filtered by the environments. This is something that we can change by just clicking on the settings wheel on the top, and I click again to Power Platform settings. We've been here before, and then I can click on enable tenant-wide analytics. These are the terms of service, and if you agree to those, you can click on enable. And after I think 12 to 48 hours, you're going to see it here on the top that you can filter not just by the environment, but that you can see like the whole tenant activity of your apps and flows. After talking about the environment strategy, we are talking about data loss prevention policies. Those data loss prevention policies are just DLPs, enforce rules for which connectors can be used together. Those DLPs can be defined by either the global administrator for the Power Platform or by the environment administrators. And they can be applied to all environments or specific environments. Like in most cases, it makes sense to define tenant-wide policies, which, for example, block connectors which should not be used by any chance inside of your organization. And then you can apply policies to specific environments. Those connectors can be classified as business data, non-business data, or blocked connectors. By having those three buckets, this just means that connectors inside of your business data bucket cannot talk to connectors inside of the non-business data bucket, and the other way around. If you have connectors inside of the blocked bucket, this just means that those connectors can't be used at all. I will show you in a minute, but there are new granular DLP policies which you can use, for example, to restrict certain actions or endpoints of specific connectors. This by now are not available for Office 365 connectors. Let's jump now inside of the Power Platform Admin Center and let's see how to set up a data loss prevention policy. Now we're going to take a look at the data loss prevention policies. For this, again, you can go to admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com, and on the left side, you will find the policies under Policies and then Data Policies. As you can see, we have no policies so far, so I can just click on Create New Policies down here or on the top. So first of all, we need to give it a name. So this policy is going to be the most restrictive policy that we're going to have for our default environment. So this is going to be our default policy. Again, it makes sense to have a naming convention for those policies as well, since when you're having lots of different policies, it's good to have have it organized. So for the beginning, you can see that we have three buckets in here. We have 0 connectors inside of the business bucket, 632 inside of the non-business bucket, and 0 in the blocked business bucket. As you can see right now, the non-business bucket is our default bucket, which means every time there are new connectors released, they're going to be stored inside of the non-business bucket right now. So I would change this for the default environment by going to the set default group and then using as a bucket the blocked bucket. Click on here and I click on apply. All right, so now I want to have all the Microsoft, all the Office 365 connectors inside of the business bucket, and all the other ones I will want to have in the blocked bucket. What does it mean? So if I have everything in the non-business bucket, all the connectors that are available are allowed for use for the citizen developers, which means they can have an application which uses Office 365 Outlook, SAP, for example, and the Twitter connector, which I don't want to have because I don't want to get information from SAP sent out to Twitter, for example. If I have, for example, the SAP connector inside of the business bucket and the Twitter connector inside of the non-business bucket, this means there are no apps or flows which can use the SAP connector and the Twitter connector at the same time, because they can only communicate with connectors which are in the same bucket. So as you can see on the second column in here, we have a filter for the blockable ones. So not all the connectors are blockable. So all the Office 365 connectors are the ones which are not blockable. So I will first select all of them who are blockable, click on yes, and those I'm going to move over to the blocked bucket. Just select this one and then move to, do it again, select all of them and move them to blocked. Now you can see I have all the connectors inside of the blocked bucket, and I have 24 in the non-business bucket. And those ones I'm going to send over to the business bucket. Again, I'm just selecting all of them and move them to business. Now it makes sense to take a second look at what you have here at the moment. For example, the Dynamics 365 customer voice. I don't want to have this one in the business bucket. I cannot block it, but I can move it to the non-business bucket, so it can't be used together with all of the other connectors. Move to non-business. All right. Now that we have this in place, let's take a look at what else we can do inside of the DLP policies. Let's go, for example, to the blocked connectors, and let's say the SQL connector should be able to use as well inside of the business bucket. So I'm just going to select this and move it to business. But I don't want the users to do everything with this SQL server. For example, I only want them to read items, but I don't want them to update or create new items inside of the SQL, inside of any SQL database. So in order to do this, I can use the granular configurations by clicking on those three dots. Go to configure connector, and we're going to select connector actions. As you can see in here, at the moment, everything is allowed. So when I have this in the business connector, in the business bucket, people who are using the SQL Server connector inside of the apps or flows, they can delete rows, they can update rows, everything which I don't want. So I can just click on deselect them. Get row is fine, get rows as well, insert rows, no. Same for update row, get tables is fine as well. So then on the bottom, you can see default connector action settings. So right now, every time there is a new action for this connector, this will by default be allowed. But I don't want this because who knows what they're going to add in the future. So I'm just clicking on block new connector actions, and then I click on save. So this is the first thing that I wanted to show you. The second thing that I want to show you regarding the granular DLP policies is the connector endpoints. When I select them, you can see that at the moment every endpoint is allowed, but this is not something that I want to have. So I want to add an endpoint and just give them access to maybe a specific server. So I'm going to click on allow, and I need to enter an endpoint, for example, HTTPS /contoso.com, for example, / and then asterisk, because they can use everything that's behind of this or after contoso.com, and everything else should be denied. Can click on save, and then we're done here. Those granular DLP policies, they can't be configured for all the connectors. For all of the third-party connectors, yes, but for the Microsoft connectors, you can't configure the connector in detail. This is something which is not possible at the moment. Let's hit on next, and the same thing that we did for the SQL connector, we can do for custom connectors as well. So custom connectors, they communicate to other data sources via an API, and we can define which APIs can be used in which data group or in which bucket it should be used. And this is how we can define this in here. I will leave it like this at the moment. Let's click next, and then we are here in the scope. So this should be, as I said, the most restrictive one, and it should not apply to all the environments, because they might be environments which are in production and which just require more connectors, which I give them inside of this policy. So I'm going to click on add multiple environments. As you can see now in here, a new section came up, and I click on next. I need to select which environment this policy should be applied to. I click on the personal productivity environment, click on add to policy, and I click on next. I can review this, and I can click on create policy. Now, there's a very important thing that you should keep in mind is if your default environment is already full with applications that your citizen developers have built or with flows they have created, and there are some apps or flows which would violate this policy, which means in the runtime the flows are not going to be run, they're going to be suspended. The same counts for the applications. You cannot open the application anymore. So this is why you first should take a look at which applications do I have inside of this environment, and is everything fine with this policy, or should I first check with the owners of the applications if we might need to move those solutions, applications, and flows into a development and production environment. But once you're happy with this, you can just click on create policy, and it should show up in here as well, as you can see in here.
Now that your tenant is secured, let's see how you can monitor the activity of your citizen developers within Runpipe. The first thing Runpipe helps you to find out is who your app makers are and who are your Power Platform champions. Are they from the IT department or spread across your company? Which skill level do they have, and who is the right person for specific needs, such as working with specific connectors? You want to know which ones are the business critical applications, if they require IT support, and if they are part of a proper application lifecycle management. Orphaned apps and flows can cause big problems and stop processes from being productive. This is why you should want to know when a flow or app becomes orphaned, and you want to know who should be responsible for their maintenance in the future. The application of the Power Platform can be tracked as well as the monetary benefit for the business. Having your projects documented is very helpful in many scenarios. You want to ensure that in case the developer leaves the company, it should be easy for the IT to support those apps and flows. On the other hand, it should be documented how the project is coping with personal data and other regulations. Most of the time when people are building digital solutions, they are not just building an app, but they use different components to get what they need. We call this interplay of apps, flows, dashboards, and other project items a project. Those projects should be documented as a whole to ensure specific regulations can be met. A documentation in Runpipe consists of a base description of what this project is all about. Business impact serves as a business justification of the project. The technical description should help the IT understanding the architecture and the level of complexity of the overall solution. Lastly, privacy and industry documentation should ensure that all relevant regulations are met. Now it's time to take action on specific events occurring inside of your tenant. With Runpipe policies, you can define certain criteria which lead to policy conflicts and that raise an alert. This can be apps and flows which suddenly stopped working, making owners aware of deprecated connectors which might prevent processes from working properly. Those policies can be triggered as well when compliance criteria aren't met. With approval workflows, you can ensure that the governance you have defined can be complied. Runpipe provides pre-built approvals for accessing environments for app maker projects, the request of premium licenses, and regulatory approvals such as GDPR and IT security. Although there are predefined workflows, these can subsequently be adapted and extended. The last chapter of our webinar is how Runpipe helps you to upskill your citizen developers. When it comes to educating your citizen developers, it's helpful to get the management on board. They will help you to carry the importance of low-code development inside of your organization. Building a maker community encourages even more citizen developers to bring in their ideas and creativity on which processes can be digitized. The activities inside of your communities, as well as Runpipe's monitoring capabilities, will help you determining the Power Platform champions in your organization. By the way, Runpipe provides the integration of your Yammer community. Trainings which can be placed within Runpipe will help you accelerate the adoption and the quality of low-code projects. Those trainings can either be held in person or on demand, for example within LinkedIn Learning. Within the wiki, knowledge of your citizen developers can be bundled and help others who are new to low-code or that search for specific information, such as who is the right person if I need to set up a SQL database for my app. The last thing you want to do is to share success stories of a cool project that have been developed by your colleagues. I hope this was a helpful introduction to this topic. If you want to learn more about Runpipe, feel free to write us an email or click the link in the description to book a demo. Also consider subscribing to this channel since we are constantly working on new helpful material for you. We appreciate your feedback, so feel free to leave us a comment. Thanks for watching.